Let's talk about the Mahabharata. It is, without a doubt, one of the greatest, most sprawling stories ever told. It's an absolute epic, filled with incredible plots, subplots, and characters. But a story of this scale raises a huge question. How do you even begin something like this? Well, as we're about to see, its opening is way more complex and, frankly, more fascinating than you could ever imagine.
Right, so where do you start? I mean, this thing is massive. Is it with the birth of a hero? A declaration of war? No! The Mahabharata takes a completely different road. Its beginning isn't just a single point in time. It's more like a Russian nesting doll of stories, each one tucked inside another.
To really get how this epic kicks off, we have to wrap our heads around something called a frame narrative. Basically, think of it as a story that's a container for other stories. But here's the thing. The Mahabharata doesn't just use one frame. It uses several, creating this amazing chain of narrative that stretches all the way back through time.
The journey this story takes to get to us is just incredible. It all starts with the great sage Vyasa, who literally composes the entire epic inside his own mind. He doesn't write it down at first. Instead, he teaches it to his student, Vaisampayana. And it's Vaisampayana who gives the first ever public performance of the story. Then, much later, a traveling storyteller named Ugrasrava hears that recitation and decides to retell it to a whole new audience. And that storyteller, Ugrasrava, that's our way in.
So, let's start with him, Ugrasrava, the final narrator in the chain. This is the outermost frame of the story, the actual point where we, the audience, step inside.
So the story we're about to hear doesn't start on some epic battlefield. No, it starts here, in a quiet, sacred forest called Naimisha. There's a whole group of respected sages, led by a man named Saunaka, and they're in the middle of this massive 12-year-long fire ceremony. The scene is one of total peace and devotion.
And into this super tranquil setting walks our narrator, Ugrasrava. You can think of him as a professional storyteller, a wandering bard who has traveled all over, collecting ancient tales. He shows up at the hermitage, pays his respects, and right away you can feel the energy of the oral tradition that's at the very heart of this epic.
The sages, naturally, are eager to hear a story, and Saunaka makes a specific request. He wants to hear the Mahabharata. But then he asks a really important question. Where have you come from, and where did you hear this story? And that question is the key. It prompts Ugrasrava to peel back the first layer of our narrative doll, taking us to a very, very different time and place. So where did Ugrasrava hear this grand story? Well, it wasn't in a peaceful forest, that's for sure. It was in a royal court, and it wasn't during a peaceful ritual. It was during a terrifying one, performed entirely out of vengeance. Ugrasrava heard the epic during the Sarpa Satra, the great snake sacrifice. This was a ritual started by a king named Janamejaya with one single horrifying purpose: to summon every single snake in the world and burn them alive in a sacrificial fire. Just pure revenge.
Now get this, the very first public telling of the Mahabharata was performed by Vaisampayana as entertainment for King Janamejaya during the breaks of this horrific snake sacrifice. Just think about that for a second. The greatest story ever told was first used to basically pass the time during an act of mass extermination. Wild, right?
Okay, so this obviously raises a gigantic question, the same one the sages in the forest immediately ask. What on earth could possibly motivate a king to do something so unbelievably extreme? And just like before, a character's question drives us deeper into the narrative. To answer why the king is doing this, Ugrasrava has to tell yet another story, a prequel that happened generations and generations earlier. This story is actually the fifth section of the Mahabharata's opening, called the Adi Parva. Okay, let's break this down real quick. It all starts way back when the gods were churning the ocean to get the nectar of immortality. Two sisters, Kadru, who's the mother of all snakes, and Vinata, the mother of all birds, make a bet. But Kadru cheats to win, and Vinata is forced into slavery. Eventually, Vinata's powerful son, the great eagle Garuda, frees her. But in a moment of pure rage over being disobeyed, Kadru lays a terrible curse on her own snake children, that one day they will all be consumed in the fire of King Janamejaya's snake sacrifice. So this ancient curse is what sets everything in motion. Fast forward a few generations, and King Janamejaya's father gets killed by the snake king Takshaka. Seeking revenge, Janamejaya learns about this ancient curse and decides, you know what, I'm going to make it happen.
And that's how we get the perfect high-stakes setting where another sage named Astika is destined to intervene and where the first ever telling of the Mahabharata takes place.
So now, after all those layers of backstory, narration, and cosmic curses, the stage is finally set for the main event.
So let's put it all together. Here's the structure in a nutshell. You've got this incredible, multi-layered frame. A storyteller in a forest who's recounting a tale he heard at a king's vengeful sacrifice, a sacrifice that was itself caused by an ancient curse. And inside that whole frame, you finally get the picture, the famous story of the two families, the Kauravas and the Pandavas, that we all came to hear.
And here's what's truly amazing. We have to go through 5 full sections of this kind of setup before the main story of the Kuru and Pandava clans even begins. The epic spends thousands and thousands of verses just building the world and the context before the first main character is even born. It just goes to show you, for this story, the why is every bit as important as the what.
So we're left with this question. Why start a story this way? I mean, what's the point? By giving us the epic through this chain of different narrators, each with their own audience and their own motivations, the Mahabharata seems to be telling us something really profound from its very first lines, that no story is simple. It suggests that history is never just a direct report. It's a memory, something passed down, retold, and maybe even reshaped by the very act of telling.